My name is not important for this story, but my daughter's name is Hazel. And if there is one thing you need to know before we dive into the wreckage of my family, it is this. Hazel is not slow. Hazel is a watcher. She is a listener. She is a sponge in a pink dress, soaking up every drop of dirty water the adults around her spill without thinking. But my family, they didn't see a sponge. They saw a hole. They saw a void. And that mistake. That catastrophic, arrogant miscalculation of a 5-year-old girl. It cost them everything. If you have ever been the black sheep of the family, the one whose child is judged, the one who sits silently at dinner tables while passive-aggressive comments fly over your head like arrows, then you know the specific taste of that bitterness. It tastes like chalk. It tastes like swallowing your own tongue. Hit that like button right now if you know that feeling, if you know the struggle of biting your tongue until it bleeds, because this story is for you. This is the story of how silence became the loudest sound in the room, and how a birthday cake turned into a crime scene of truth. Subscribe to Sleep Revenge Tailies, turn off the lights, and let's dive into the day my daughter Hazel burned the whole facade down. It was Hazel's 5th birthday, the big number 5, a milestone, a moment where you're supposed to feel like you've crossed a threshold, stepping out of the baby years and into the era of being a kid. We were hosting, my house, my territory, but it didn't feel like my territory that day. It felt like occupied land. The air in the living room was thick, not just with the humidity of a late summer afternoon, but with the unspoken hierarchy of my family. In the center of it all sat Hazel. She was at the head of the dining table, a spot usually reserved for the patriarch or the guest of honor, but today it was hers. She was wearing a crown she had made at preschool. It was crooked, made of rough pink construction paper, studded with uneven globs of dried glue and scattered glitter that had already begun to shed onto the tablecloth. To anyone else, it was a piece of junk. To me, it was a crown more valuable than gold. To my family, it was a prop. Hazel was quiet. She sat there, hands folded in her lap, watching the candles flicker on the cake in front of her. She didn't fidget. She didn't scream or reach for the frosting. She just watched. That was her nature. She was the kind of child who observed more than she spoke. She cataloged. She processed. She was a tiny, silent anthropologist studying the strange rituals of the adults around her. But my family didn't see a thinker. They saw a defect. The room was packed. It was a small gathering by my family's standards, about 20 people total. My parents were there, stationed near the kitchen like generals overseeing the troops. My sister Roxanne was there, of course. She was the star of every show, even one that wasn't hers. Her husband, Marcus, was by her side, looking as he always did, solid, dependable, a little bit like a piece of furniture that Roxanne had arranged to her liking. There were aunts, uncles, cousins, a sea of faces that all shared the same eyes, the same judgmental tilt of the head. The whispers had started the moment they walked through the door. I heard them. I always heard them. They thought I was distracted, busy with the food, busy with the presents, but the truth is, a parent's hearing is tuned to a specific frequency, the frequency of insults directed at their child. "She's a little behind, isn't she?" My Aunt Clara whispered to my mother, not 5 feet away from me. I was arranging plates of sandwiches, my back to them, but my ears were burning. "Does she talk at home? Or is she like this all the time?" Another voice chimed in. "Maybe you should get her tested. Early intervention is key, you know." They talked about her like she was a broken appliance, like she was a car that wouldn't start. "She's not slow," I wanted to scream. I wanted to spin around and hurl the sandwich tray at the wall. "She is careful, she is thoughtful." But I didn't. I kept arranging the ham and cheese. I swallowed the rage. That was my role in this family. The quiet one, the tolerant one, the doormat. Hazel didn't react. She sat on her throne of dining chairs, her crown slightly askew, listening. I saw her eyes dart around the room. She heard them. I knew she did. But she didn't cry. She didn't pout. She just filed it away. She was building a case, though I didn't know it at the time. Then came the cake. We sang Happy Birthday. The cacophony of out-of-tune voices filled the small dining room. Hazel didn't blow out the candles immediately. She stared at the flames, her face illuminated by the soft glow. Then with a single, precise puff, she extinguished them all. Everyone clapped. Roxanne clapped the loudest, her smile stretching wide, too wide, a performative grin that showed all her teeth. That was Roxanne. Everything she did was a performance. If she wasn't the center of attention, she would create a scene to become the center of attention. We finished the cake. The sugar was hitting the other kids, sending them running around the living room, but Hazel stayed at the table, picking at a piece of frosting. That's when Roxanne stood up. The room didn't quiet down immediately, but Roxanne had a way of commanding a room. She tapped her glass with a spoon. Clink, clink. The chatter died down. All eyes turned to her. She smoothed her blouse, tossed her hair back, and smiled. "I want to say something about Hazel," she announced. Her voice was projected, stage perfect. She turned slightly so she was addressing the room, but looking at Hazel. "Hazel is such a sweet little girl, so gentle, so patient." I felt my jaw tighten. The muscles in my neck corded. This wasn't a toast. This was a eulogy for my daughter's intelligence. This was condescension wrapped in a bow of fake kindness. Roxanne continued, lowering her voice slightly, as if sharing a sacred, sad secret. "And I know she's learning at her own pace. That's okay. Not every child develops the same way." My mother nodded along. My father, standing behind her, nodded too. They were the backup dancers to Roxanne's lead vocal. They validated the narrative. Hazel is the poor, slow child, and Roxanne is the benevolent, loving aunt. It was sickening. It was a public stripping of my daughter's dignity. "Some children are just slower," Roxanne said, the word slower hanging in the air like a bad smell. "And that's nothing to be ashamed of. We love Hazel just the way she is, even if she doesn't quite understand everything going on around her." The silence that followed was heavy. It was the silence of pity. They were looking at my daughter with sad eyes. Poor Hazel. Poor, slow Hazel. She doesn't understand the world. She doesn't understand us. I was about to stand up. My hands were shaking. I was going to tell Roxanne to sit down. I was going to tell her to shut her mouth. I was going to cause a scene, burn the bridge, and walk out. But before I could move, before I could even inhale to speak, a small, clear voice cut through the air. "Aunt Roxanne has a boyfriend." The room didn't just go silent. The room ceased to exist. The air pressure dropped. Every head snapped toward the head of the table. Hazel hadn't moved. She was still picking at her frosting. But her voice had been loud enough to carry, clear as a bell, sharp as a knife. Roxanne's smile didn't fade immediately. It froze. It became a rictus grin, a mask stuck in place while her brain tried to process what had just happened. "What?" she asked, a nervous laugh bubbling up in her throat. Hazel looked up. She made direct eye contact with her aunt. No fear, no hesitation, just facts. "You have a boyfriend. His name is David. You talk to him on the phone when Uncle Marcus isn't home." The color drained from Roxanne's face so fast it looked like she'd been punched. The mask cracked. She looked around the room, panic seizing her eyes. Marcus was sitting right next to her. He had stopped mid-bite, a forkful of cake hovering in front of his mouth. "Hazel, sweetie," Roxanne stammered, her voice pitching up an octave. "I don't know what you think you heard." "I heard you," Hazel said. Simple, factual. She took a bite of her cake. "You were at our house last week. You were on the phone in the bathroom. You said, 'I love you too.' And you called him David." The bathroom? My blood ran cold. I remembered. Roxanne had come over last Tuesday, supposedly to drop off some old clothes for Hazel. She had spent 20 minutes in the downstairs bathroom, claiming she had a stomach ache. Hazel had been playing with her dolls in the hallway right outside the door. The scraping of a chair cut through the tension. It was a harsh, grating sound against the hardwood floor. Marcus stood up. He was a big man, broad-shouldered, usually quiet. But now he looked like a volcano about to erupt. He wasn't looking at Hazel. He was looking at Roxanne. "What is she talking about, Roxanne?" Roxanne's eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal. Everyone was staring. The aunts, the uncles, the cousins. The pity that had been directed at Hazel seconds ago was now replaced by shock and disgust. "She's 5, Roxanne hissed, turning on me, then back to Marcus. "She doesn't understand what she heard. She's confused. She makes things up." "I'm not confused," Hazel said. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "You said you were going to leave Uncle Marcus after your vacation. You said David was nicer. You said Uncle Marcus doesn't listen to you." Marcus's face had gone from confusion to something harder, something cold and terrifying. He looked at his wife, and he looked at her like she was a stranger. "Roxanne," he said, his voice low, vibrating with suppressed rage. "Stop it," Roxanne shouted, turning on Hazel. "Stop talking right now." She looked at me, her face twisting into a snarl. "Control your child." But Hazel wasn't done. She was on a roll. It was as if a dam had broken. All the whispers, all the "she's slow" comments, all the times she had been ignored, they were all fueling this moment. "You also said Uncle Marcus was boring, that he never wanted to do anything fun, and that David takes you to restaurants." Hazel paused, tilting her head. "You said a lot of things." The room was frozen in a tableau of horror. My mother was clutching her pearls. My father was staring at the floor. Marcus took a step back from the table. He grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. "I'm leaving," he said. "Marcus, wait." Roxanne scrambled after him, grabbing his arm. "Please don't listen to her. She's a child. She's slow. She doesn't know what she's saying." He pulled his arm away with such force that she stumbled back. "Don't," he warned, his voice shaking. "Don't you dare try to spin this. We'll talk later, at home, away from this." He walked out. The front door slammed. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot. The party was over. It wasn't a slow wind down, it was an immediate evacuation. People made excuses. "We have to let the dog out." "I forgot an appointment." "We should go." They grabbed their kids, their purses, their coats, and they fled the crime scene. Within 30 minutes, the house was empty. By 6:00 p.m., it was just me, Hazel, and my mother. My father had vanished with the excuse of checking on something at his office, a cowardly retreat from the wreckage. My mother was in the kitchen, aggressively cleaning up. The clatter of plates being stacked was the only sound. She was scrubbing a dish that was already clean. Finally, she turned to me. She didn't look angry. She looked disappointed in me, in my child, in the disruption of the order. "Did you put her up to that?" I stared at her. The absurdity of the question was breathtaking. Put her up to what, Mom? Saying those things about Roxanne, humiliating her in front of everyone. "I didn't put her up to anything," I said, my voice steady. "Hazel doesn't lie. If she said it, she heard it. You know that." "She's 5, my mother insisted, her voice rising. She could have misunderstood. She could have heard bits and pieces and put them together wrong. Children have wild imaginations." She quoted her word for word, Mom. "David is nicer. Leave after vacation." That's not imagination. That's a transcript. My mother's face tightened. She threw the dish towel onto the counter. "You shouldn't have let her speak like that. In front of everyone, it was cruel." "She was answering Roxanne's toast," I said, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. "The toast where Roxanne called her slow, where she implied Hazel doesn't understand things. Hazel proved she understands everything. She proved she understands more than any of you gave her credit for." "By humiliating her aunt," my mother snapped. "By telling the truth," I corrected. "If the truth is humiliating, then maybe Aunt Roxanne shouldn't have been doing humiliating things. Roxanne's marriage is her business, not yours, and certainly not Hazel's. Roxanne made it Hazel's business when she had private phone calls with her boyfriend in my house, in my bathroom, while my daughter was in the next room. A 5-year-old shouldn't be listening to adult conversations," my mother shrieked. "And a 32-year-old woman shouldn't be having affairs," I shouted back. The silence that followed was thick. My mother looked at me, her eyes hard. She grabbed her coat from the hook. She didn't say goodbye to Hazel, who was sitting in the living room reading a book. She just walked out. The second door slam of the day. I walked into the living room and sat on the floor next to Hazel. She looked up at me, her big eyes searching my face. Did I do something bad? My heart broke and mended itself all at once. I pulled her into a hug. "No, baby, no, you told the truth. That is never bad." "Aunt Roxanne was mad," she whispered. "Aunt Roxanne was embarrassed," I said, pulling back to look her in the eye. "Because she got caught doing something she shouldn't have been doing. Remember how we talk about lying? How it makes a knot in your tummy? Aunt Roxanne had a big knot and she got caught." "Is Uncle Marcus sad?" she asked. "Probably," I said softly. "But that's not your fault. That's Aunt Roxanne's fault. She broke a promise to him." Hazel nodded. She processed this. She always processed things. People think I don't know things because I'm quiet, she said. It wasn't a question, it was an observation. I know they do, baby, I said, stroking her hair. But you know a lot, don't you? Yes, she said simply. I listen. The fallout was a nuclear winter. The next day, my phone blew up. It was Roxanne. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. It was long, rambling, hysterical. She accused me of coaching Hazel. She accused me of using my daughter as a weapon to ruin her life. She called me jealous, vindictive, a monster. She screamed that I had destroyed her marriage. I listened to it in silence, then deleted it. She called again, and again. I blocked her number. Then Marcus called. I stared at the phone. I felt a pang of guilt, though I knew I shouldn't. I answered. Is it true? He asked. No greeting, just a flat, exhausted question. It is, I said. She heard exactly what she said she heard. Roxanne was on the phone with a man named David, in my bathroom last week. Marcus was quiet for a long time. The silence on the line was heavy. I found the text messages, he said finally. After the party, I went through her phone. I should have looked sooner. There were signs. I ignored them. He took a shaky breath. I'm sorry. Don't be, I said. You didn't do this. No, he said, but tell Hazel thank you. I blinked. What? Tell Hazel thank you for being honest, even when the adults weren't. He hung up. I stood there in my kitchen, holding the phone, realizing that the man who had just had his life blown up was thanking my 5-year-old daughter for the courtesy of the truth. Marcus and Roxanne separated 2 weeks later. The divorce was messy but quick, officially over in 6 months. Roxanne moved in with David, the dream life she'd whispered about in my bathroom. It lasted 3 months. Turns out the man you cheat with is rarely the man you stay with. He wasn't nicer. He was just new. And when the newness wore off, he was just a guy dating a woman who would cheat on her husband. My family, though, they didn't blame Roxanne, they didn't blame David, they blamed me. They blamed Hazel. The narrative shifted. In their twisted version of reality, Hazel and I were the villains. We had destroyed the family. We had ruined the sanctity of the birthday party. I was jealous of Roxanne. I had trained my child to spy. I stopped going to gatherings. I stopped answering calls. I stopped pretending that people who thought my daughter was broken deserved access to her. About 6 months later, Thanksgiving rolled around. My mother called. We're having dinner at the house, she said. Are you coming? No, I said. Why not? She sounded genuinely confused. That was the worst part. She didn't even understand what she had done. Because you blamed my 5-year-old for telling the truth, I said calmly. Because you defended Roxanne's affair. Because you called Hazel slow. We never said she was slow, my mother protested. Yes, Mom, you did. Multiple times to her face, behind her back, at her own birthday party. Roxanne gave a whole toast about how Hazel doesn't understand things, and then Hazel proved she understands everything. She humiliated her aunt. Her aunt humiliated herself. Hazel just turned on the lights. She's a child. She shouldn't have been involved. Then Roxanne shouldn't have involved her. She shouldn't have brought her affair into my house. She shouldn't have talked about destroying her family within earshot of a child. Hazel didn't ask for that information, Mom. Roxanne gave it to her. My mother was quiet. I could hear her breathing. So, she said, her voice icy, you're not coming to Thanksgiving. Not this year, I said. Maybe not ever, not until you apologize to Hazel. Apologize? For what? For calling her slow. For making her feel like there was something wrong with her. For defending the person who lied instead of the child who told the truth. My mother hung up. I didn't call back. Hazel is 7 now. It's been 2 years since that birthday party. She is still quiet. She is still thoughtful. She still listens more than she speaks. But when she does speak, people pay attention. The teachers at school have learned. The other parents have learned. And my family, the ones who still talk to us, they've learned. They've learned that my daughter is not slow. She is observant. She is intelligent. She processes everything. And when she has something to say, it matters. Last week, she asked me about Roxanne. We haven't seen her, obviously. The divorce and the aftermath left a crater where she used to be. "Do you think she's sorry?" Hazel asked. She was drawing a picture, her hand moving in careful, precise strokes. "I don't know, baby," I said honestly. "Do you want her to be sorry?" Hazel thought about it. She stopped drawing. She looked up at me. "I think she's sorry she got caught," she said. "Not sorry she did it." I stared at her, 7 years old. "That is very perceptive, Hazel," I said. "I know," she said, and she went back to her drawing. "I pay attention." My family still doesn't understand that. They still whisper, I'm sure. They still think Hazel is simple. They still think I'm vindictive. But they are wrong. Hazel gets everything. She always has. And the moment they underestimated her was the moment she proved them all wrong. At her own birthday party, in front of everyone, with nothing but the truth. So let me ask you. You've heard the story. You've seen the details. Did Hazel do the right thing? Should a 5-year-old have stayed quiet to preserve the peace? Or was her silence, broken at the perfect moment, the purest form of justice? If this story gave you a sense of satisfaction, if you believe that truth, no matter how young the mouth that speaks it, should always be louder than a lie, then smash that like button. Subscribe to Sleep Revenge Tailies for more stories of justice, revenge, and the little guys winning. And please leave a comment below. Have you ever seen a child reveal a secret that destroyed an adult's world? I read every single comment. I'll see you in the next one.